Welcome to the Toledo City Council 2026 Budget Committee Training. Can I turn it over to Judy?
Let's do the couple of preliminary procedures. We'll do roll call, pledge of allegiance, and then I'm going to introduce our new finance director, and then we'll turn over to Judy.
Okay.
The city recorder has stepped out for a moment, so we can start with pledge of allegiance.
Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, perfect timing.
Johnson, sure.
That's two. Is only 3 pizzas?
No, seriously, I'm not. But I'll figure it out today. No? Madam Mayor, are you present?
Mentally or physically?
I'll take either.
Sure.
Okay. Council President Sylvia?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Chambers?
Councilor Chambers texted a short time ago. He is running late, but we'll be done.
Councilor Kaufman? Here. Councilor Keating?
Here.
Councilor Riley?
Here.
Councilor Burns? Barry Brewster?
No,
Ann?
Yeah.
Dakota? Jonathan's here.
Here.
Mindy's here. Rich is here. Ricky? Stephanie?
Yes, here.
And Kim.
Here.
We missing 2, 3.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Madam Mayor, before we dive into the training this evening, I would just like to introduce the city's new finance director. This is Mindy Suter. Mindy comes to us from the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians, where she was the finance manager for the tribe's health clinic. Before that, she worked with the city of Newport in the police department as a records clerk. So she has municipal experience, local government experience, and a very extensive background in budgeting and all the other fun aspects of municipal finance. Today is day 5 for Mindy. You joined us last Wednesday, so diving right into the deep end. But we're very, very excited to have her. And during our finance meeting this morning, Judy made a comment about this will be Mindy's baby next year. So she's fortunate enough to join us while we're starting this process in the sure hands of Judy Richter, and we'll be able to be an active part of this and lead it next year. So just wanted to welcome Mindy to her first City of Toledo budget training. Thank you very much. With that, Madam Mayor, you can turn over to
Actually, I have a couple of housekeeping things. There's a refrigerator in the back that has water if you're interested in having water. The balcony can pass as you come in, and there's plates and napkins for the pizza. So don't feel like you have to wait for a break to get up and do stuff. So.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Appreciate that. Madam Mayor, you may turn the meeting over to Judy Richter at your discretion.
Judy, all yours.
All right, thank you. Do we want to take a minute so people can get pizza before we dive into this, or you want to feel free to get up while I'm talking and get some pizza or get water or whatever you need. Budget is kind of a big subject. Takes some doing to get your arms around it, but we're going to give it our best shot today. And we're not talking about anything specific as far as dollars go. So this is not technically a budget meeting, but the laws in the state of Oregon do allow us to have a budget training. And so that's what this meeting is about. I hope that all of you have marked your calendars for the budget meetings. They're scheduled for May 5, May 12, and possibly May 19. Our goal is to get you the budget as early as we can, but I can't promise that it'll be before the 5th of May, but for sure when you join us on the 5th of May, we'll have the budget prepared and ready for you at that time. Paul has helped me and duplicated a book called Local Budgeting in Oregon for you. And this was prepared by the state of Oregon. It's not the official budget manual, if you will. That's 150 pages, and I didn't think you wanted to go there.
Thank you, no.
But I think that there is some valuable information about the budget process and the parts of the budget. There's a pretty decent glossary that starts on page 13, I believe, that might be of some benefit to you. So you can refer to that. And maybe that will help to answer some of the questions that you have. And it's your very own to keep. So, and those folks that are missing tonight have a copy that will get to them as well. So.
Judy, I don't know if you can tell or not, but I've created binders for everyone to keep all this stuff together, and they do have a printed copy of the PowerPoint tonight.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. That's great. So let's just go ahead and get into the PowerPoint presentation, and if anyone has questions as we go along, be sure to ask. Don't be bashful. As I said, budget's kind of a big thing to get your arms around, and I don't think you get it really the first time you hear it, but by about the second and third time, it starts to kind of make some sense, hopefully. So this is the information that we're going to be covering tonight. Introduction to Governmental Budgeting. Next slide, please, Paul. So what is local budget law? And down in the lower right-hand corner is the statutes and the administrative rules that have the budget law in them. So if you want to go to that degree of learning about the budget, you can do it that way. Also on the state of Oregon's website, if you Google Oregon local budget law training, you will find that there's 3 different recordings of budget training that's quite detailed that the state puts on each year. And you can listen to them at your convenience. They also have handouts that go along with it, so you can download those if you want more information after this evening, or I'm always available by phone or text. Be glad to answer any questions that you have. So what is local budget law? Well, it sets a standard for procedures for preparing, presenting, and using budgets. Oregon's budget law is quite detailed, and they especially want to encourage citizen involvement, and that's why there's the requirement to have citizens sit on the budget committee as well as the city council members. It gives method for estimating expenses, resources, and proposed taxes. And I'd like to underline estimating. I refer to it as a crystal ball. As I'm preparing the budget, I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do between now and June 30th, and then what next year is going to be like. And as you can imagine, that involves lots of guesstimates. Local budget law also outlines the programs and services provided by local governments. Next slide, please. Why do we have a budget? Well, I think the biggest factor is that it's the financial plan of the city, and it's the guideline, and you kind of live and die by the budget. And it's very important that you follow local budget law. If we don't follow local budget law and do it correctly, we can't operate as a city. We wouldn't be able to collect any taxes, and we wouldn't be able to spend any money. It's also a policy tool because it helps us to set goals and priorities. It's an implementation tool. It translates the goals into action plans. It's a financial tool in that it allocates resources, a communication tool for decision makers and administration. It's an accounting tool, and it's an audit tool. And that's the last thing on the list, but it's not the least thing. And actually, when our auditors come in, they examine what we have done very closely to be sure that we've abided by the budget that was adopted. Next slide, please. And it takes a village to adopt a budget. It's quite a process. And actually, the budget process pretty much actually starts in January, and it takes clear through to June. We don't work on it every minute, obviously, but it takes quite a bit of time to get it pulled together. The council sets the goals and establishes policy, and that's what they do hopefully in January or February. The budget officer and staff draft a proposed budget, and that's what we're working on right now. Citizens have the opportunity to participate by being on the budget committee or by giving comment during budget committee meetings. And you'll see that when we meet the next time on May 5th. There'll be time for public comment on the budget. And we're happy to have our citizen budget members on our budget committee. That's really want to thank you for your willingness to participate in this process. The budget committee approves any changes to the budget by making a motion and voting. And then the budget as a whole can only be approved by a majority of the members. And when we say members of the budget committee, that's the 5 people on the city council plus the 5 citizens. And everyone has an equal vote in the process. And we can't do it without the majority passing the budget out of the budget committee. And then after the budget committee approval, the budget goes to the city council for review and adoption. And in between times, there's a notice that has to be published in the newspaper about the budget and when the council's going to be discussing the budget and when they're going to be approving it. And the council can only make minor changes to the budget after it comes out of the budget committee. And then by June 30th, the city council has to pass a resolution adopting the budget, making appropriations, and imposing the tax levy. And this is a hard and fast deadline, June 30th. Any questions so far? Okay, let's keep moving. Budget committee responsibilities. So the first thing that we'll do next meeting on May 5th, well, not the first thing. First thing we'll do would be to open the budget committee meeting and elect a chair and a vice chair. But then right after that, we'll get into the budget and we'll listen to the budget message being read. Then we'll have a time to hear public questions or comments. We'll review the proposed budget and adjust as appropriate. And we set the amount of tax or rate, and actually in our case it's a rate, and it's our permanent rate, which is already set, and then approve the budget. So we anticipate that there'll be probably 2 meetings at least of the budget committee. The first one, you'll be getting the budget. You may have had it ahead of time, maybe not, but you'll at least get it that night for sure. And we want to give you some time to look it over. And so that's why we're going to have at least 2 and possibly 3 meetings. Next slide, please. Okay, the budget is prepared by fund, and a fund is a self-balancing set of accounts. You can kind of think of it as a company because it has assets and liabilities, and it has expenses and income like a small company would have. And we have quite a few funds in our budget, and we'll go into the different types of funds here in just a moment. And the fund is used to record estimated resources and requirements for specific activities and objectives. So there is very defined, clear, definite reasons for having multiple funds. Next slide, please. And here's the main types of funds that we have in the city of Toledo. We have a general fund, which that's where all of our operations live. And within the general fund, we have departments, we have the police department, we have the fire department, we have the library, and so on. And that's our main operating fund. Then there's special revenue funds that are set up to collect money for a specific purpose. And an example of that might be, we don't have any local options, but maybe it's a special purpose grant. And the funds are restricted to one activity, so we would use a special revenue fund to track that grant. Then there's enterprise funds, and enterprise funds you can think of as another word for, or another term for business type funds. So our water and our wastewater funds are enterprise funds because they have income from selling a product and their expenses are related to the fund. And enterprise funds have to operate as businesses in that they have to pay for themselves. They can't be supported by like taxpayer dollars, for instance. They have to charge enough fees to cover their expenses, and that's why they're called an enterprise fund. Then we have capital project fund, and a good example of that is our water construction fund, which will be where the funds are housed for our new water tank and the expenses are collected. We have a debt service fund that collects the tax collections from our GO or our what is general obligation bonds. And that's where we sold a bond last June and to pay for the water tank. And now taxpayers are contributing to pay for that bond, and that's tracked through the debt service fund. And then we have quite a few reserve funds, and I think of reserve funds as kind of savings accounts. Money is set aside for specific purposes in the reserve fund, and generally, once the money is put in the reserve fund, it would be spent out of that fund, but it would not be transferred back, for instance, to the general fund. That's kind of wrong. Any questions about funds? Okay, let's move on. So this is kind of in black and white, an overview of our fund structure. This page and the next page will show you the different titles of our funds. As I mentioned, the general fund, if we start on the left, the general fund has different departments within it. And then we have a general reserve fund, which, remember, reserves are kind of our savings account. And that's where we set aside money for city hall equipment, police department equipment, fire department equipment, property maintenance equipment, library equipment, disaster preparedness, and parks plans and improvements. And then we have building and property reserve, which again is kind of another savings account, if you will. And we're setting aside money for city hall, police department, fire department, other buildings and properties, library and parks. So the general fund has, if you will, kind of two savings accounts. Then we have a streets fund, and this is segregated because we get money from the Oregon State gas tax that helps to fund our streets. Could I have the next slide, please, Paul? And then the enterprise funds that I mentioned, water and wastewater. And water has its savings account fund or its reserve fund. And wastewater has a reserve fund as well. Then these other funds that are listed are miscellaneous funds. And most of them have, well, they don't all of them, but many of them have reserve in their title. City Council Strategic Reserve is a fund that has funds set aside for specific projects for the city council. Debt service, I mentioned. Forfeiture revenue has been closed. We have a revolving loan fund, solid waste fund, footpaths and bicycle trails, systems development fund, a grant fund, stabilization fund, public safety building remodel fund, and the water construction fund. And it says that that fund will be closed, but that's not accurate. It actually is, will remain open as long as, until the Ammons water tank is built, and then at that time, probably it would be closed. When a fund isn't needed any longer, it can be closed.
And Judy,
Yes?
just a clarification, you mentioned the City Council Strategic Reserve Fund, and the way you described it was for specific projects of the City Council. Would it be more accurate for the folks that are new in this process to say that is a fund that allows the City Council throughout the year to allocate funds to projects that are unforeseen, that there's some flexibility, as opposed to we know what those projects are going into the budget year?
That would be a good definition, Andrew. It's just so that as things come up that need attention, there's some flexibility within that fund. That
Thank
can
you.
be, yeah.
And Judy,
And it's- go ahead.
no, go ahead, finish what you're saying, and then I'll ask my question.
Well, I was gonna say it's funds that have to be appropriated, appropriate is not the right way to say it, that have to be approved and voted on by the city council.
So Judy, you were saying like the forfeiture revenue has been closed and the water construction fund may be closed in the future. But don't we have to wait 3 years until it's off of our thing before we actually drop it off of our budget?
Yeah, we can close the fund, but we still have to display it as long as there's money, as long as it has history in it that's applicable. Yeah, you're exactly right, Tracy. Okay, next slide. And then this just is an example of the numbering scheme that we have for our chart of accounts. And I don't know if this information is helpful to you or not. We rely on it all the time. But everything, all of the accounts within the general fund start with 001. And then each department has a 3-digit allocation. So administration is 001-100, police is 001-400, and so on. And then the reserve funds start, the general reserve fund, which is the equipment reserve fund, starts 036. The building and property reserve fund starts 035. And you'll see these numbers in your budget book. And I just wanted to give you this information in case it helps to clarify things. Maybe it makes it more confusing, I don't know. Next slide, please.
I think that makes sense.
So this is the technical components of the budget. And the budget is broken down between revenues and expenditures. The revenues are beginning fund balance, so that's what's left over at the end of the prior year becomes the beginning fund balance for the next year. Then you'll see interest earned. The next item in the general fund would probably not be delinquent taxes. You probably see the current year taxes first, but then there might be a line for grants, and we can transfer money between funds. And so transfers into a fund are considered revenue. And then there's probably some kind of miscellaneous revenue category. Might be called refunds and miscellaneous, but you can't think to make a line item for every check that comes into City Hall, so things are grouped together. Paul, is there a sheet that shows, there we go, thank you. Expenditures. Our personnel services, materials and services, capital outlay, debt service, transfers out are expenditures. And the transfers in and the transfers out all have to zero out to nothing. Because you transfer money from one fund to another, it becomes a transfer in the fund that receives it and a transfer out in the fund that sends it. And you can't have one without the other. There's contingencies, and then there's an unappropriated ending fund balance. And that's kind of a rough breakdown of what you'll find the components of the budget. Now we're going to actually look at the streets budget from last year, from 25, 26. So it's actually the budget that we adopted a year ago that we're working on right now, working under. And you'll notice that starting from left to right, it says 2022 to 2023 actuals, 2023 to 2024 actuals. So that's giving you the history of the prior 2 years. Then there's the previous adopted budget. And then it says 2024 to 2025 EST actuals. That stands for estimated actuals. And what goes in that column is what you're anticipating is going to be spent in the 24-25 year. And that's where some of the crystal ball comes in, because in filling those out, you have to try and figure out what's going to happen between now, the time you're preparing the budget, and June 30th. Then there's a column for account numbers. The next column is the account titles. And then there's a column for FTE, which stands for full-time equivalent. And that's helps you to get your employee count. And then the next column is the proposed budget. And when you get your budget book on May 5th, or hopefully before, only for the proposed column will be filled in. Once you have approved the budget, then we fill in the approved column. And then it goes to the city council and they adopt the budget. And that's when we fill in the adopted column. So it's a work in progress. Any questions about streets revenue? Okay, let's move on to the next page. Now, this is the expenditures page, and it's laid out similar to going from right to left with the 2 years of history, then the prior adopted budget, and what we are anticipating spending, and then the account number, the account title, and you notice there under the FTE, there's 4.09. So that would be 4.09%. Excuse me, that's 4.09 full-time people. And how do you get a 0.09 person? Well, we allocate different salaries across different funds. Excuse me. And for instance, Rich oversees the whole city. So his salary is allocated across the whole general fund departments. It's allocated across streets. It's allocated across water. It's allocated across wastewater.
Does that make him the all-seeing eye?
Pardon me?
Does that make him the all-seeing eye, Judy?
Yes, the all-seeing eye. Yes, that would be what he is.
It's a good thing you two can't see the stink eye I'm giving you. Our HR director is also similarly spread across the fund, since she is the HR representative for the entire workforce.
And that's true for my salary as a finance director, mine and Mindy's salary, our accounting people, because we're writing checks and collecting funds from water and sewer, and writing checks for streets. Our salaries are allocated across all the different funds. So that's how you come up with a 0.09 person.
And as an added example of that, so we've mentioned a few of us that are spread across the city. Brian Lorimore is our Public Works Director. He oversees our maintenance crew, our water, our sewer, and our street programs. And so his salary then is spread across those cost centers that he oversees. So he's not spread across the entire city, but he is spread across 2 of the enterprise funds and 2 general funds.
Right.
So complicated.
Yeah, it is a little complicated. And, I don't know, one day I was gonna figure out how many numbers there is in this budget, but
A
that's
scary thought.
But it's
mind-boggling.
easier this way, Judy, than it was before.
You think? Yeah.
Oh,
Good.
boy.
Good.
That made no sense to me.
All right. Well, I'm glad it's getting better, Jackie.
Yeah.
It's way better than the first year you enrolled with our budget.
Well,
You had to
Yeah, it
invent the
was-
whole thing.
it was craziness. Yeah. Glad to have those days behind us.
This
For
is
sure.
so smooth.
But you guys, we would not have the budget in such good shape had it not been for Judy's involvement as our finance director. And she
Yes.
made this process happen, she and the other people on her team. So I can't give enough kudos to Judy. She brought
Thank you.
Toledo a long ways in a very short time, and I was really mean to her.
And it was nice she decided to come back even though you were mean to
I
her.
know.
I'm gonna have to grow a thicker skin in the next month.
You might, yes.
Thanks
So-
for the reassurance.
That's it for my presentation, but I'd sure like to hear any questions that anybody has or oh, sorry, Paul, I forgot the Streets Reserve Fund. Let's look at that real quick.
Last page.
Last page.
Judy, while he's bringing that up, and this can be at the end of the conversation, because I want to have opportunity for questions on what you've presented so far. But before we adjourn for the evening, can you also speak a little bit to the Urban Renewal Agency's budget?
Sure.
Great,
Sure.
thank you.
So this fund that we're looking at now is the Streets Reserve Fund. And I just wanted to bring this up to show you that Streets has its own little savings account fund, if you will. And it's not so small. You see that it's $2 million. But from the Streets Fund, we transfer each year the excess. And it's not excess, but it's money that we set aside for future projects that are bigger projects. And the big capital improvement projects have a tendency to happen out of these reserve funds. And I think that's all I have to say about the Streets Reserve Fund. Thank you, Paul, appreciate it. So you are the budget committee not only for the city of Toledo, but you're also the budget committee for the Urban Renewal Agency of the Toledo Urban Renewal Agency. And urban renewal is it's its own entity, if you will. It gets property taxes. And when an urban renewal agency is set up, a district is formed with very specific boundaries. And if you were to read our Urban Renewal Agency report, you'll find that the description of the boundary is very detailed and kind of mind-boggling to read. But within that district, then the tax values are frozen at the time the urban renewal district is formed. And the amount that the tax grows each year, because it's allowed to go up by 3%, the amount that it grows goes into the Urban Renewal Agency. And that is for, well, in its name, it says urban renewal. The idea is to improve areas of the city that might have blight or may need additional work. And when you see the urban renewal district boundary, budget, the urban renewal district budget, you will find it laid out in pretty much the same format as the city budget is, but it is just for the urban renewal agency. So it's much smaller. It's a page or two, whereas the rest of the book is probably close to 100 pages. Is there any questions I can answer about anything for anybody?
Yeah, so for the new folks, the city council serves both as city council and as the board of directors for the urban renewal district, urban renewal agency. And so from time to time, we'll have projects that fall within the guidelines of the urban renewal agency, and having that money available for us to be able to allocate toward that and not dip into our general fund is often a big part of what we do.
And actually, Paul just put up a map of the urban renewal district. And
You should put that up and then hit the wrong button. So
yeah, there it is.
for that. But there is the map of the urban renewal agency on your screen right now.
So you can see it's kind of a jaggedy line, and it covers most of the downtown area and Highway 20. And
So go ahead, Judy.
it has its own projects, and there's a plan that was made as far as what projects would be undertaken. And an urban renewal lasts for 25 years, I think. And so, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
No.
I was just going to add that one of the features of the urban renewal budget is a forgivable loan program for businesses that fall within the boundaries that, though, again, to Judy's point, there's a specific plan of what types of expenditures are approved under the city's urban renewal plan. And so any business within the green area that you see on your screen that has a project that falls in line with that plan. And we've had everything from asking for paint to paint either the interior or the exterior of a business, a new awning, anything that to the point Judy made a moment ago that helps that business alleviate blight at their location. Physical improvements can apply to the city for a forgivable loan through the urban renewal agency budget. The members of the city council, to Councilor Keating's point, acting in their role as directors of the URA, that's always gets fun to delineate those two, can approve an application and award those forgivable loans to the applicant. So kind of similar in a way to the council strategic reserve fund, that amount of money is allocated in the budget each year that you recommend and council approves. But what that does is earmark the dollar amount. It doesn't specify the specific projects. So when applications are received, those then go before the urban renewal agency board individually to be approved.
Am I remembering correctly, just for a fun fact kind of thing, that we have to essentially vote on it twice? We have to approve it as the urban renewal agency, and then the city council has to approve the expenditure?
No, the urban renewal agency, so we had a unique one this year where an applicant asked for funds for a piece of equipment. And to the councilor's point, because that one wasn't a physical improvement to the structure, we had to, the city had to enact a subsequent agreement that added some additional stipulations.
That's what I was thinking.
So yes.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. So the URA can award a straight forgivable loan in its individual capacity. If there's additional guidelines for that use that the URA board recommends, then that does then go to the city council for a second review. Judy, anything else that you would add on urban renewal?
Not that I can think of.
Very good. I just wanted to bring that up for discussion tonight since the Urban Renewal Agency has its own separate budget. I wanted to make sure that especially the new committee members have an understanding of the difference between the two and knowing that you'll have two different budget books that you'll be reviewing and critiquing. So thank you,
Well,
Jenny.
and there'll actually be two different meetings. We'll call one meeting to order, probably do the Urban Renewal Agency first because it's the easiest. Call that meeting to order and take care of the business that needs to be transacted and then adjourn that. And then we'll actually call a second meeting to order, a second budget committee meeting for the city to order. So it is a little bit confusing, but we'll get through it. Anyone else, any questions, comments?
We probably should have done that earlier. We did roll call, but we didn't do individual.
Two
Yes.
on the agenda item today.
Well, where's my agenda?
On the website or below?
That was fantastic, Chris.
That was good.
Why did you download it up there?
What?
How come you didn't download it?
It's not something that computers are.
Any additional questions from the members on the budget process?
I don't know what I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that's true for all of us. We'll figure it out together. With the unknown unknowns, those are the scariest ones. Madam Mayor, do you want to lead off on introductions?
Oh, sure. This is my husband, Jonathan Nix. He is on the budget committee. Would you like to go next?
Introduce himself.
That's a false.
Comment, Jonathan? I'm also on the planning commission. I don't know, maybe I'm not.
Why aren't you?
Why aren't you?
Oh, she can't fire you from that, don't worry.
Oh,
He still is.
Say,
I'm Eric Chambers, I'm on city council.
Andrew Keating, I'm on city council, and this is my third go-around because I started on the budget committee 2 years ago.
Dakota McKnight Todd, just on the Stephanie Smith on the budget committee.
I'm Ann Ellis, and I'm here, and I sit next to Jonathan sometimes.
That's good.
Bill Riley, I'm on city council.
And I want to congratulate, haven't had a chance to meet you in person yet. I was on the screen last time. Council member Riley was appointed to the vacancy at the last meeting, so this is his second official meeting now as a city.
Oh, right, sorry.
Yeah, exec session was still.
5 days.
His second in 5 days. Welcome aboard, Counselor.
Jackie Burns, City Council.
Frank Sylvia, city council.
Kim Bauman, Budget Committee. He's City Council President. Yeah, you forgot that part.
No, I didn't, I just left it out.
You don't meant to do it on purpose.
Senate vision.
Jackie, go ahead and city council. And this is our new finance director,
Very excited.
Mindy, our city manager, Rick Huebner, and our extraordinaire city recorder, Hal Johnson.
So the last name is Stewart.
Suter.
Suter, I had,
How do you spell it?
S-U-T-E-R?
There's an
S-U-I-T-T.
S-U-I, okay. I had in high school, I went with Linda Suter. She was, but she was S-U-T-E-R, yeah.
Isn't that the officer that was memorialized?
No,
No, that's Sumter.
Oh,
Sumter. Fine. Starts with an F. Oh, and I am the mayor.
I was just gonna say, now that you've introduced 4 other people, would you like to introduce yourself? I'd like to acknowledge and welcome our new budget committee members. Thank you both very much for your interest in stepping up and supporting the city in this very important process. And I hope it's interesting and rewarding, and that at the end of it, you want to come back next year. Thank you both.
So is this your first time seeing this type of budgeting, or have you done it before?
Question?
So the subsequent meetings, are we anticipating they'll be 2 hours?
I think the subsequent meetings could go a little bit longer, but that'll be up to you as budget committee to set your timelines. And that'll be one of the things that we'll suggest at the first meeting, that once you get your chair and your co-chair.
Set
picked,
time.
that-
Seemed like the second was the longest.
Yeah, the last couple of years, the first meeting, the budget message tends to be a little bit shorter. Last year was a little bit more because we had some public comment that came with it. It was always that second meeting that was very long because we've typically tried to plow through getting all the way to approval in one meeting for the past 2 years. So I think 2 years ago, we were about 3 hours. It was
Yeah.
pretty long.
I can remember 10 or 11.
Okay.
That's why we didn't.
I'm really thrilled by the Oregon law that requires me to read the budget message in its entirety, and I'm sure you all are super excited about that. So I will try to keep the budget message as concise as possible while conveying the goals of the proposed budget.
I thought I would just bring a pillow.
I didn't catch the mayor's comment. What was that, Madam Mayor? Okay, I'll go back and listen to the recording. As Paul mentioned a second ago, I can't just throw it on the table and say, here you go. I am actually legally required to read it. And I wanted to share that in advance in case anybody is wondering that night, why is he doing this? It's not because I'm in love with the sound
Of the meeting?
What was that, Ann?
You read it at the beginning of the meeting?
Yes.
So if the person's late,
As long as we have a quorum to actually open the meeting, so you all don't get to be late.
I didn't listen to the agenda, thought it was happening tonight.
That's why I was late.
Slipped in.
But yeah, I didn't want you all to think I'm just in love with the sound of my own voice. So we'll get through that as quick as we can.
Suddenly develop guys.
So then I just have to delegate it to Mindy, and she'll be super excited about it, I'm sure. Thanks. Any last questions, comments for the good of the order?
Get pizza before you leave.
The only thing that I was going to add is I know that at last year's budget committee, we had decided that we had wanted to have in between budget cycles, we wanted to have a sort of work session, brainstorming session for the budget committee to discuss the process, what worked, what didn't, make recommendations for how city staff could help prepare the budget committee, to go through this process. I just wanted to reiterate that. It was something that was discussed a lot over the last year, and I think we just weren't able to find a time to place that in between cycles. So I think what I'd like to suggest that we can certainly discuss at our first meeting in May is that before we break from this cycle, we simply have a debrief. We just talk about what works, what doesn't, what things we might want to recommend, places where we felt there was confusion or we would have liked more information, but just a very casual debrief that we can provide to city staff. So perhaps it is to say, instead of we just plan on trying to plow through everything in one meeting, but maybe we try to be intentional about having 2 meetings, not breaking ourselves in one, and make sure that that second meeting has some time for us to do that debrief so that we can think about, how this committee goes through this process.
In my defense, nobody had questions. They had no questions. I'd be like, go through this page. Are there any questions? They're like, no.
Yeah, and for some context, one of the things that had come up, last year was that we had such turnover from year to year to year over 3 or 4 consecutive years. And we've got another year now where there's a lot of turnover. And thank goodness we finally have a full committee. That the process has kind of been inconsistent. And so even last year's process is different from the previous year's process. And I know there were a lot of things that previous year, my first year, that were kind of upsetting that were changed in the process for some folks. There were some presentation things that were changed that created some drama. And so the recommendation last year was more brought up to say, let's actually brainstorm, let's actually look at it and figure out, what we as a committee.
Page 11 kind of covers that a little bit. May I ask questions at the budget committee, and it kind of says how you can, get those answers, outside of the
I
meeting.
almost forgot how mean I was.
And I would add to Councillor Keating's comments that, once the budget process was done last year, then the city got really focused on recruiting for the position that I now fill and focused on some other city needs. And by the time I was here and in place and felt like the water line was below my nose, 3 of our budget committee members had chosen not to continue in that role, which now has brought us Dakota, Stephanie, and Kim. And again, thank you for joining us. And so we felt like, well, we really need to get the committee fully staffed, for lack of a better term, and have the 3 of you, along with the returning members, really get to go through this process. So I really do appreciate and like the idea of let's do that as soon as this process is over. So it's fresh in everyone's minds, for lack of a better term.
And I really like and appreciate Jackie Burns had made the comment earlier, I don't know what I don't know. So sometimes what happens is, as you get through the entire process, you don't know what to ask questions about. You don't necessarily know what might be missing from what we had a year ago in terms of a process. And I think the example that I'm trying to harp on a little bit from 2 years ago was that the actual entire presentation of the budget was very different. And I never saw what it was the year before, but I walked in and I heard, this is incredibly different and it's completely upsetting to several people on the committee.
I'm
And
not sure that's how I worded it.
no, it's not, but I'm putting it my diplomatic way.
That's a PC version.
Yeah, so I think it really is just kind of a chance for us to say, are there components of this training that might be might be helpful for us to spend more time on, or things that could be incorporated into this first meeting or whatever. So thank you for entertaining my little.
Just for the record, I would like to go to state that if I don't understand what's being discussed, I will ask
Yes, you do.
questions.
Please
Thank you
do.
very much, Mr. Keating.
Please do.
I hope so. I think if anybody has a question, ask it. If you want to hold it, you can do it, but there's no stupid questions. That's one thing I say a lot. No, honey, you ask stupid questions.
And I would add to Councillor Burns's point that if it's a question for you, it may be a question for somebody else as well, and they maybe aren't as comfortable speaking up. So please follow the councillor's lead. If you have a question, by all means, bring it up. Absolutely.
Here's a stupid question. Are we done?
Oh, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I believe Councillor Riley had.
Yes.
So if something is brought up, this is the budget for whatever, and I would probably be one of those, and I might say it more than once, how does this adversely affect the budget for that area? So, okay, who are we going to lose? Who are we going to, because it directly affects.
What are we not doing somewhere else because we're doing something here, right?
Or what's going to fall by the wayside?
Sure.
That's a needed thing that now there's no budget for it because there's no money.
That's a great question, and
Last year.
that is very much a reality of budgeting, because departments, we asked each department to tell us what you want to do this year, right? And inevitably that there's more asks than there are funds available. And it always makes Judy's and Mindy's and my job really fun to have to go through and pick things out that are asked for. So I think that's a very valid question, Counselor. What isn't being done or what's going by the wayside in order to do this? Absolutely fair game.
Well, we lost a very valuable employee last year because we were told wrong that we had no money to keep them.
Yeah.
And so we did.
No. It was let go.
No, I mean,
We have money available that have been not used to fill other positions that we could have kept her on for another year in order to fulfill a position she was fulfilling. We had an interim city manager that decided that that wasn't our choice to make, and he was wrong. It was a not so great part of our past, and we're moving past it now.
So that question exactly happened last year. It's a good question.
Yeah. it's-
Always ask.
And you know, I think something that is important to, you have a right to answers to your questions. As budget committee members, you have just as much authority as anybody else in this room, you know, at this table, in terms of, you know, city councilors, mayor, you know, or budget committee member. If you guys have a question that can legally be answered by our staff does have an expectation that they have to provide that answer to you and to the rest of the committee. And I think some of the frustration that's coming out here is that some of the questions were not necessarily answered or were not, I would say, somebody found ways to interpret the questions as not necessarily questions that had to be answered. I don't know.
Or interpreted them in a way that wasn't in alignment with the intent of
intention
the
of the
person
question.
asking.
Yeah.
And to Councilor Keating's point, those of, you know, there are members around the table that have been elected, and there are those of you that have been appointed. With that said, each and every one of you are one of 14 in this process. And so to those of you that are appointed members, as the councilor said, you have the same level of power as the mayor, as one of the 6 council. So keep that in mind as well.
And what happens if one person does disagree? I mean, from what I've been reading, you know, it has to be done by the 30th.
But
It has to be entered by the 30th, but the only way that we can submit it is if we all agree on the budget.
No, majority.
Majority, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a majority, then what happens?
Then we keep at it. We keep.
But according to,
We need
the state, we need to have something in by the 30th of June.
so about 4 years ago, I held up the budget because I would not vote yes. Because they were,
What happened?
well, they had to change their minds. They had to do what I wanted, essentially, because I was the one holding up the vote.
Yeah, see, that to me seems a little screwy, but that's the way.
Well, but I was the deciding vote between,
I understand,
yeas and
I
the nays.
understand, yeah.
and I refused to vote yay on a budget that I felt would cripple the city. And it was actually just as we were going into COVID, it was 2019.
Okay.
And it was good that we didn't go with, it was good that it was changed.
Okay.
I know the answer for council, but not for budget committee. Is it majority sitting or majority present?
It has to be formed.
As long as there is a quorum, then, which is at least 8 members, then it is majority of the quorum.
That's what.
Yep. So if 8 members are present, 5.
Yes, that's.
And your question is a great one, because you're right. We have to get a quorum of the present members, whether that's 8 or 14 or anywhere in between.
So somebody can hold, I'm just curious, I mean, I wasn't, this is my 3rd year, so I'm just kind of curious.
Sure.
And reading all this stuff, you know,
If-
what you hear and what you read sometimes are 2 different things.
One person cannot hold it up alone.
Yeah. But so we have 11 members in the.
Depending on what the quorum is.
Correct. So we have 11 members in the room tonight. If it was 6 to 5, then it advances. If it's 5 to 6 or less, then we keep at it and, you know, we make adjustments until we get that 6. Yeah, so to your point, we do not have an option to not submit a budget for
That
June
is my
3rd.
impression, okay.
Yeah, but we keep at it until we get 6 votes.
So we're nothing like the federal government right now then.
We do not have the authority to pass a continuing resolution.
We are required by law to balance our budget as opposed to federal government, which is not.
Oh, I know, I was just being a smart ass.
But that is a great point. So sometimes you hear about a city operating in deficit. What that means is that they have passed a budget in which expenditures exceed projected revenue. So they balanced their budget with their reserve funds. But the budget, the expenditures minus revenues have to equal 0. So we do not have an option to have an unbalanced budget. And we do not have an option to not submit a budget to the state by June 30th, which I would really like to not get that close because the budget year starts on July 1st. It's kind of surprising to me that the state lets you go until the day before, to be honest with you.
Well, you can go over to the, whatever they call it, the 2-year plan, the 24, the
biennial.
24-month plan.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? All right. You get a month off. Thank you for all for being here tonight. And Judy, was it May 7th? May 5th, thank you.
Yeah.
Tonight's the 7th, that's what it was.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, I'm done.
Take together, yeah.
So we're having tacos that night.
There you go.
All right, so with that, we're adjourned.